Alright, this is not something that I usually do, because I usually just do all my, like, charitable deeds and whatnot off channel, just because I'm not trying to create a big head. But I feel like this opportunity is one that I feel like could be very instructional for you guys. So, I got my buddy Ben!
Hey,
Alright, so what did I enlist you? What do you know so far? I guess is a better way of saying it.
she was raped a number of times, I believe 15, as a prostitute, and we're also going to do our best to um, witness to her and hopefully have her at least give her the accurate representation of Jesus, and if she accepts Christ, she accepts Christ.
Alright, so that's the plan. That's the plan. I'm not going to give out too much of Fair Lady's information. But I'm going to show you certain aspects of it that hopefully, will prick at some of y'all's hearts, to kind of get out your comfort zone and really make that extra effort to reach people that you wouldn't usually reach with the gospel. So, I'll get back to you guys when we're at a place where I feel comfortable bringing the camera back out again. So, see you in a bit. Alright, so let's say there was somebody that needed the gospel of Jesus, but they were literally on the other side of this tree line. Then your king wanted you to go. Would you go? We all know doctrinally that you should go, but it's a whole nother question of would you? Just ask yourselves that question, man. We'll get back to you in a bit. Alright, so we have arrived at her home. If you want to, would you? What are your thoughts? Like looking at it right now.
The term encampment is what I would say. An encampment, because it's kind of what it is. It's essentially a large campsite that's, quite frankly, terrible.
All right, and I mean, I'll show you guys. I'll intersperse a clip from when I was here on my own earlier. But looking at this now, like standing in it, looking around at it, what would you have to say to Christians that actually want to argue that these are not the sorts of people that we should be trying to reach with the gospel?
Jesus went to any and everybody, and more than a few that were, I mean, in reality, the one that keeps coming back to mind is the Samaritan woman that he met at the well in Samaria. That's the one that keeps coming back to mind. Because there's very likely a reason that she wasn't, that she was alone, because typically you didn't go gather water in the middle of the day. You did that at morning as a kind of a social event. And it's very likely that she was shunned and a pariah, which is similar to this in certain ways.
Right. That's facts, man. That's facts. This is just not a good way to live. I'll flip it just for a little bit for you guys. This right here is where she was. This is where she lives. I mean, mattress here, tent here, and I'm just gonna hold you guys with me as we walk back to civilization here. Yeah, so this started because this started kind of as an EMT call, actually. See, there's the CVS right there. They got called out to a prostitute's medical call at the time. At the time, she was somewhere that you would not guess a prostitute to be. But I intended that I was gonna follow up and find her, try and give her the gospel. And see what I mean? CVS basket right here. See, CVS basket. And so right there is civilization, but just so I don't show too much of where we're at, I'm gonna cut the video here and get back with you guys later. Alright guys, so I came to find our prostitute and give her the letters in the Bible and that contact information for the shelter, and this is where I found myself. She's not here at the moment, so I'm gonna have to make a return trip, but I mean, just look. But I show all this just to let you guys know there is opportunity everywhere. There is opportunity everywhere. Even in your own backyard, sometimes just off the streets that you so frequently drive. So if you're looking for ways to get the gospel out there, just look around. Look around. And if you'll be so daring, you know, find a homeless person to chat up, or just chat up that person at work that you're scared to talk to, man, because there's a lot of darkness out here. Satan's got a lot of people trapped. All right. So hey, if I manage to find her again, I'll be back. I'll be back. Peace. And literally right down the street. I mean, she's not here. We're gonna have to come back another time or something. You know, but definitely be praying for the woman who calls this the place where she resides. And I'm hooding up because there's a lot of mosquitoes. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah, yep, we're gonna start moving out of here now. But yeah, like, I just wanted to show you guys that I'm not trying to say, look at, you know, how good we are for, oh, look at us, we're willing to walk through all this stuff to preach the gospel to somebody. No, I'm showing you this because I hope, you know, it pricks your heart, you know, like looking at Emmett Till's body in a matchbox. You know, actually started to move people's hearts back in the day. I hope that seeing something like this moves some of y'all's hearts to actually preach Jesus and be willing to endure a little uncomfortableness to reach people that are in situations like this, either physically or with hearts that look like this, you know, with the gospel, with the love of Christ, you know, and it's worth it. I mean, isn't the Lamb worthy to receive the reward of his suffering? You know, like, any parting words, any parting thoughts you'd say to anybody?
More or less, just as an anecdote, the location where you found her is, when you were on the EMS call, I was thinking we go past that just to cover our bases.
All right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I won't go past it because I don't want to put that place on blast, but we will talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, we will talk, because like I said, you'd be surprised on where that happened. See y'all in a bit. All right, welcome. We're back from our excursion. Sad to say we were not able to find the person that we were looking for this time. God willing, we'll be able to track her down in the future, get the gospel to her. But I really did want you guys to see that. Like I said, first things first, just so you saw it, all right? Because images really communicate more than our, bungling talking could ever do. Sometimes just seeing something is kind of what people need. But then I also wanted to kind of talk, just kind of let my buddy here really unpack his thoughts, because we had some time to drive kind of back and dissect some things. And I also wanted to let's have a short little chat on remembering the poor. One of those concepts that it seems like everyone outside of Christianity knows is a part of Christianity, and then is so easily forgotten, once you start moving deeper into the faith. So before we get into the scriptures, my buddy Ben, go ahead and, I don't know, just because you mentioned your thoughts while we were there. Anything else kind of strike you in the interim?
The only thing that really struck me was I asked to go to the location where he got the call at, which was a church. I'm not going to put the name in because it's not relevant. And two, I don't think they know about the incident anyways, so it's not terribly important. But it was well kept, and it's just like, you can kind of tell that they've taken care of the church, and it's in an area that's not exactly the nicest, and it's just like, I have to ask the question: do they know? Do they care for the community? Because I would say they have a mission field in their backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, but kind of what's convicting even about that question is the second you ask it of someone else, like, at least for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but at least for me, like, I always end up pointing that question right back at me, where it's like, I always just kind of get convicted on just personal budget, I guess. Like personal and church budget, you know what I'm saying? Like should I really be spending money on this thing when I could be doing this? Or like as a church, should I really be spending money on the fourth smoke machine this year when there are other things that that could be done, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Like,
ask this question all the time with personal finances. Question, yeah, but the problem I run into myself is instead of actually putting money towards stuff, I just deny myself, but don't actually go and do what I'm supposed to be doing, which is I don't actually go and find a need for it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, man. Like, and I'm not about to try and in this short little time kind of move to like this is how much of your money you should be spending here, here, and here. Like, I'm not the guy to do that. I think the only person that really has the authority to do that in a believer's life is God. Like is the Godhead. But what I would encourage people to do is actually do the scary thing and actually ask God, okay, do you actually want me to be spending money on such and such? Because I feel like that's a lot of times where the disconnect happens, where we fail. Like, we don't even
I
ask.
think it's ours. Yeah, it's kind of like we've given our 10%. I mean, the rest of it's ours.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't understand that Jesus didn't come for the 10%. He came for all of it. And if you're only giving 10% of you, like leave money to the side. If you're only going to give Jesus 10% of you, then you didn't really give Jesus anything. And you're not really in. And it's not that Jesus is just going to tell you to just, empty your bank account and give it to such and such and don't have anything at all. That being said, if he were to say that to you, you should. But, like, it's not like Jesus does that for everybody. I just think, like Ben said, the issue is you actually think it's yours. And so, what business does God have telling me what to do with what's mine? And no one's going to say it like
Parable
that,
of the talents. Parable of the talents is kind of, yeah, because God's like, he comes back and squares up with the stewards, essentially. So, I think it's applicable to current conversation.
yeah, and far be it for me to, to do any video and not have any scripture in it at all. So I'm just kind of two verses I wanted to start with. One in Philippians, which it's in Philippians 4, verse 9, and I'll flip over to James while you read what Paul had to say there.
Philippians 4, chapter 4, verse 9.
Yep, I got you.
Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
That's heavy, and not one of those things that we tend to teach on a lot. But Paul's literally saying to the Philippian church, and through that to all of us, hey, the pattern of living that you saw me do, replicate it. Replicate it in your time, space, and culture. Which one requires that you actually know the kind of life that Paul led, which requires getting into the scriptures. And then two, it does require being honest about all that you actually saw Paul do, And another thing I wanted to just kind of mention is what James tells us in chapter 1, verse 27, that religion that is pure and undefiled before God, the Father, is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. And I don't think that applies to just orphans and widows. I think you could obviously have to visit anyone that's afflicted in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. And James is talking about that on the personal level, like not on the corporate church level, but like the individual level. You know? I don't know if you had. You just look like you have a thought dancing.
No, I spaced out.
Ah, no, you're good, man. You're good. Like,
I was trying to get to Titus.
well, go ahead, please, if you want to, go for it.
What is it, Titus 3:14?
Yeah, Titus 3:14, another one of the neglected books in the New Testament for sure.
Our people must learn to devote themselves to doing what is good in order to provide for urgent needs and not to live unproductive lives.
Do you have anything that you wanted to kind of unpack that with?
More or less to, well, which one's the one of, was it pure and unfallen? The one in James.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think pretty much sums up what the definition of good in this context.
Yeah, pure and undefiled. That's legit. You know, and especially with Titus, I'm glad you kind of swung us into Titus, because the question I ask all the time here is, do you prioritize making disciples, right? But this next question assumes that you are prioritizing making disciples. Assuming that that's a priority for you, and assuming that that's a care for your church community, are you discipling your people according to Titus 3:14? Is that one of those things, where it's like teaching the people to live in such a way that they could help in cases of urgent need? What would that sort of thing require? Self-control. Actually thinking of others. You can't help in cases of urgent need if you don't care about cases of urgent need. You gotta care, and you have to be living in such a way that you actually could, and of course the first level of that is financially, but even beyond that, are you making it a natural thing to walk in the supernatural, to where just like that urgent need spiritually pops up? Are you in a place before God where you'd feel comfortable stepping out and actually doing that? Or are you so constantly, battling the gross sin that you just don't ever feel worthy enough to step out and do that? Not to say that you ever are or aren't, because you're never legitimately worthy to do it, but do you ever understand, do you hold the mystery of the faith with a clear enough conscience to where case of urgent need pops up? No, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. Let me go. I'll answer that call. That's part of this, so that's a big part of this. And the last thing I kind of wanted to get to, Galatians 2, verse 10. Just bear with us as we get there. Yep. Galatians 2, verse 10. Actually, starting verse 7 and read through the end of
7
10.
and read through, 7 through 10.
Yeah.
On the contrary, they recognized that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been to the circumcised. For God, who was at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, was also at work in me as an apostle to the Gentiles. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to me. They agreed we should go to the Gentiles, and they to the circumcised. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I had been eager to do all along.
Now, this is kind of Paul's argument to the Galatians, of kind of, undergirding his apostleship, as it were. But consider this verse in Galatians in conjunction with Philippians 4:9, right? Paul tells us, hey, whatever you've seen and heard in me, replicate it in your own life. And what do we see from Paul in Galatians 2? An eagerness to remember the poor. And so the question then becomes, 2 plus 2 equals a question. Do you endeavor to make it a pattern in your personal life to remember the poor? Not does your church have a program set up for the poor. Do you personally move to style your life in such a way that you can remember the poor and do it with eagerness. You know, and so I kind of wanted to spend just the next 5 to 10 minutes really discussing that. Like, what do you think it means to remember the poor, especially with eagerness? You know what I'm saying?
That means you would, and well, eagerness, I would say that means you are actively seeking out their need.
Mm.
That's what I would say. That's what I would define eagerness as: actively seeking out the need of the poor, so you can actually help them in some way, and also give them the gospel.
Definitely, to give them the gospel. But yeah, like I'd say what you said really encapsulates it. Like, seeking to do that, you know, not just doing it to check a box. Because especially with this, the difference between checking a box for the poor and trying to help the poor, the difference between the two is like miles wide. Like, there's some situations where you can check a box and disguise it like you care, but like when it comes to helping the poor, you either care or you don't. Like, and there's not really a middle ground with that. I don't know if you had anything or not, but
I didn't.
yeah, there's not really a middle ground with that. It's either you do or you don't. And to me, I think that's one of the reasons why even Paul was so eager to remember the poor, is because, one, they're made in the image of God. They need Jesus. That alone is worth it. But also, two, when people around you see you eagerly remembering the poor, it checks them because they don't care. But I gave money to whatever. Okay, yeah, you did, to check the box. You know? But like, what are you doing with that homeless dude on the street corner? You know? Like, with a sign up saying, I'll work for a meal. Like, well, I don't want to have to stop my day and actually have to like turn the car around and find a place to park and then get out and walk over to that guy. And I mean, then it'd be one thing if it was just me talking to the guy, but all the cars are passing and everyone's seeing me, and it's just awkward.
Well, most people are oblivious anyway, so I doubt they're gonna, unless they're your friend, they're not gonna, unless they actually know you in real life, then they're pretty much gonna be oblivious and forget about you.
And that's the truth that we have to remember, right? Because when you get out and doing it, you're conscious of all the eyes that are on you. But like Ben said, like, they don't care. Like, they don't care. They're moving along.
The what if brigade essentially comes alive and attempts to go to work.
Yeah, like, and Satan loves the what if brigade, you know, because it's one of the best things that stops the saints from moving forward in obedience. You know, but that's just one of the things that hit me, and also I think you too, just going out there and seeing, you know, where she was encamped. Even if she's not there anymore, at least for a time, she clearly was set up there. So it's like,
Or somebody was.
yeah, or somebody was, like, and it's just one of those things, like, dude, that was literally within 100 yards of a convenience store. Not gonna say which one, but definitely within 100 yards of a convenience store and like proper civilization, you know. And just me saying it as someone that's been to those places, like I mean, you got bamboo growing up, like it looks like some jungle off in some other country. Like, you know, there's a road 10 feet behind you, but you do a 360 and this is America. Places like this exist in America. Like, yeah. And if you're eager to remember the poor, you'll know that. And you'll seek those places out. You know, and yeah, it does take work. You know, because some of these places aren't exactly obvious to find. You know? But perhaps part of the reason they're so difficult to find is because you also deep down don't really want to find it. Because then once you find it, you got to do something about it.
Yeah. Ignorance is kind of to some people, it's kind of well, I don't know about it, gives you deniability. But once you know about it, you have to address it.
Right.
Which is either a yes or a no.
Right. There's no maybe, you know, and that's kind of the point of this video, right? Because though I'm certain that, like, no one person knows every single dilapidated place and place with poverty in their community, right? To know that much, I feel like that would just have to be what you did as a day job, or you'd have to be God, you know? But I guarantee you, everyone at least knows one, you know? Like, yeah, there's that guy on such and such street. He's always out there begging. And it's like, sure, you don't know the whole homeless network, but you know of that one guy. Why don't you go talk to him? I'm not saying give him money. Although, heck, if the Spirit moves you to do that, you should do it. But how about just turn the car around, park. It's not like you were going anywhere anyway. Like, park, take 10 to 15 minutes, talk to the guy, talk to the lady, learn them. And in learning them, it becomes easier to love them. And then the words of Jesus start to become fulfilled. The world will know you're mine through your love for one another, but also through the way that you give that love to those on the outside and those at the bottom, you know? So, I mean, I say all that just to challenge all of you guys. Hey, be eager to remember the poor. Ask yourself, do I remember the poor? How am I remembering the poor? You know? Really ask that question. Anything else?
I think you said it quite well.
I do my best, you know, but your additions were, as usual, needed, you know.
Thank you.
Needed, you know. But there is one other thing I do kind of want to get to. Just to say, like, what would you say? Because I feel like you're definitely equipped to answer this question. What would you say to those that have like the urge within them, like they feel God kind of pushing them out there to do that, but they've also got a lot of thoughts like, I can't really do this, and I don't know how I would do this, and just a lot of what ifs and God, I can'ts because of.
Find a buddy. Find a good Christian buddy.
Elaborate.
Well, in reality, it kills a lot of it kills a lot of anxiety and tension with it, because, you know, especially it's kind of like I have somebody right next to me who's essentially got my back, and that's why like I did witnessing with the UNCC's Ratio Christi for a couple of times, and I was shocked about how you could carry on an hour-long conversation with a complete stranger, and there'd be like 2 or 3 of us going door to door, and I was shocked about how you could have a hour-long conversation with them at their residence, and it kills a lot of the butterflies, because you know you have friends that you essentially trust.
That's good. That's good. I mean, so you heard it from the man himself, you know, like, if you know, because now you know. If you've watched this video, you know. So now it's either, yes, Lord, I will do what I can to remember the poor, or no, Lord, I won't. Answer yes. If you answer yes and you're still timid, you're still, you know, in trepidation about it, find yourself a strong Christian friend around you. Find yourself someone who's kind of walked these streets before you, and just go with them, you know. Hey, God's put this on my heart. I want to do this, but could you walk with me as I try to walk in obedience? And, you know, you'll find it very easy to bring people to Jesus' table, and you will be praising God at the so-called impossible circumstances that he brings you into for his glory. You know, so with that being said, you know, I'll leave off now, but hey, since you're on the channel, check out some of their content. You know, really good Bible studies in Luke, and I gave some meditations on walking through miscarriage that we're going through. A lot of people are finding it helpful and hopeful, so maybe you'll be another one of those too. Peace.